All right, I think it's 5:30, so we're going to go ahead and start. Welcome to the 4th annual community feast. So happy to see all these faces. We would love to be gathering around this table like we have the past 3 years, but I really appreciate you taking the time to join us and have a meal together here. I'm just going to spend a few minutes of an introduction to give you a little bit of background of how things are going to go. If you were here early, you were enjoying the music of Brooks Forsyth, who's a local music legend, and asked and gave us permission to play his music. So good way to ease into things here. Just as a quick look at how we're going to play out, we're going to try to just last for an hour here for the main program. A little bit of a welcome here. We have 2 panel discussions planned. So we will have the first panel discussion, which will be focused on local foodways. Then we will go into a brief breakout room for just about 8 minutes or so, where we can talk in smaller groups, kind of like going to the kids' table, where we sit at a smaller group and have a smaller conversation. We'll come back into this main room. Those breakout rooms will just happen automatically. You don't have to click anything. You will just be sent there and brought back. Then we'll have a second panel discussion. In that we have some leaders that talk to us about how we can ease food insecurity and provide more resources to our food insecure parts of our community. And then we'll just have some final comments. So again, thank you everybody for being here. As a little bit of a snapshot of who's here, we have mostly ASU students. They won, go team, about 44%, then followed by faculty, staff, and administration, and then some Boone community members as well. And so we'd like to welcome and thank Chancellor Everts and Provost Norris and Vice Chancellor Foreman for being here as well around the table. We really appreciate so much your support in this Appalachian tradition, and hope that next year, certainly we hope that we'll be joining around an actual table again. We miss that so much. So this is being recorded. I wanted to make sure everybody was aware of that. During our panels, if you have a question, if you could just put it in the chat. So if you're new to Zoom, you go, there's probably like 3 little dots at the bottom of your screen. And if you click that, one of the options is chat. And if you will please chat to everyone, any question you have. We have several people that'll be moderating that Q&A during the panel. We hope we have time to answer some of those during this 1-hour session. But if not, we invite you to hang around afterwards. It's kind of like when you're done the meal and then everybody just sits around the table and talks. So we'll just have some time for Q&A and let you really actually unmute yourself and ask any of the panelists questions that you might have after that time. So it ends up that a virtual event isn't all bad. There's no budget for one. There's no setup, no cleanup, no weather stress, which would have been kind of stressful to this rainy day. We were able to invite people from a long way away, which is great. Have family members maybe join us, which is good. But I know we all would love to be gathered around this table together and having conversation. So in order to try to implement some of that happened around this table, we have for you a poll for one, and I'll share the poll link in the chat in just a moment. Just 3 quick questions. We will present the results of that at the end. What's your favorite kitchen utensil? What food is most giving you comfort these days? And then maybe what new things have you tried related to food since we've been sort of in these altered living conditions during COVID-19. And at the end of this session, we'll share those results. The other way we would like to connect to each other is to make sure that we retain the ST in FEAST. So FEAST was created 4 years ago by the AppalFRESH Collaborative, and that stands for Appalachian Food Research for Equity, Sustainability, and Health. This is a transdisciplinary group of faculty on our campus who all do work in the sustainable food world from very different perspectives. So my name is Carla Ramsdell. I teach in the Department of Physics and Astronomy. All of our moderators on our panels will also be AppalFRESH members, and they will introduce themselves certainly. So, so FEAST stands for Food Engagement and Storytelling. So in order to retain that storytelling piece, we're providing two different opportunities for you to share food stories with us. Maybe these are things from your childhood, or maybe it's a story you can share of something that's happened during COVID-19 that was significant for you. You could type directly into the chat. There is one of our AppalFRESH members who has renamed themselves to Storytelling. So if you'll chat directly to that, not to everyone, just to that, she will be compiling those list of stories. Or we have a Google form where you can put your stories, and I will provide that Google form link as well. All of those forms were also sent to you prior to this on your email if you registered for this event. And so you should be able to get to the link for these polls, as well as the link for this Google storytelling form. And those will be available after this event as well. If you want to just stay in this space, especially for the storytelling, and add your stories later, you're welcome to do so, certainly. All right, so I think my initial comments are done, and we appreciate, again, everybody being here. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and hand it over to another AppalFRESH collaborative member, Jackie Ignatova, from the Department of Sustainable Development. So thank you, Jackie.
Thanks, Carla, and thank all of you for being here today. Of course, we'd love to be around a table together, but we thought this would be a way of connecting as a community. And I just also want to express my appreciation for all the panelists that are joining us, community members that will be sharing their stories. And so I'm a professor of sustainable development and also AppalFRESH member, as Carla mentioned. And so we have panelists today around the kind of local food economy and local food ways. And so today we'll be hearing from Olivia Sanders of Soil Shine Farm and Ferment. Maybe you can wave, Olivia. Shannon Carroll, who's the finance coordinator of Blue Ridge Women in Agriculture. In particular, she's played a pivotal role with the launching of the High Country Food Hub. We also have Liz Whiteman, who's the operations director of Blue Ridge Women in Agriculture and runs the day-to-day operations at the Food Hub. And Carol Coulter, who wears many hats, but she's the one that provides our community with delicious goat cheese from Heritage Homestead Creamery and Goat Dairy. She also teaches farm business management and transforming the food system for the SD department, and was also the former executive director of Blue Ridge Women in Agriculture. And so what we'll be doing, I'll be asking the panelists in that order to share just in a few minutes a story that really tries to capture some of the challenges and opportunities for their kind of part of the local food economy during this difficult time, during COVID-19. And so Olivia, do you mind going first, sharing your story? Olivia Sanders, you might be muted. I don't see you yet.
Yeah. Hey guys. So yeah, my name is Olivia. I studied sustainable development at App State and graduated in 2015, which is a long time ago now. And I always dreamed of being a farmer. I was the last group of students to live at the SD farm, which was really, really impactful. So I hope people still get to get out there and learn stuff. Chip and the awesome people at that farm. And so I worked at different farms, and I started my own business last year in 2019 with my now husband, Rocky. And yeah, it's so fun. It just happened last week. So we're like, oh. Yeah, and we started Soil Shine Farm and Ferments. And it's been a really small business. We just, we started with a holistic goal, which was really fun. And our holistic goal is to provide food for our local community. And so we grow food. And the original idea was that we would grow vegetables because that's our skill set and that's what we know how to do. But we tried to apply to our hyper-local farmers market in Burnsville, North Carolina, which is a small town about an hour from Boone. And we found out that they weren't accepting new veggie vendors. So we had to go back to the drawing board, and we came up with a value added proposition. And so we grow vegetables and then ferment them and then sell ferments at the farmer's market. And that worked out really smoothly. There was actually a fermenter in our county at that market who was having a baby and wanted to sell her business. And so we just totally lucked out and bought all of her equipment and walked into this perfect opportunity at our small farmers market. So we've been doing that for 2 years now, fermenting everything we grow, and supplementing it a little bit in the winter through the food hub. To get us through winter sales like the food hub. That's the background. But just to jump to COVID, last year everything was great. We were starting up and we were really excited for a really big 2020 season. And then we just sat around and waited and waited and waited for things to start and get back to normal. And our market was like, oh, we don't know what to do. We're not going to happen. And we're like, what? Like, this is our biggest thing, is this small market. And so with the in-person sales, like, not promised to us, they did eventually start a month and a half late, and that was fine. But for that first month and a half, we had absolutely nowhere to sell. And we knew the demand for local food was through the roof. And the way for us to access it was mostly through the High Country Food Hub, which was awesome. I really just celebrate all the things that they've done to make local food more accessible to people who can't make it out to the market, and also for producers, small producers like me, who's far away but can still access the bigger market of Boone. So that was really great for us, and we had a spectacular March and April there. Everyone here who knows the story, just, grocery stores, people were panic buying, and then the food hub was already set up and ready to absorb all of that interest. And so the food hub's been celebrated by all of Western North Carolina food people this year. Everyone's trying to do what they did. I'm part of different collaboratives that are like, hey, did you know about the food hub? And I'm like, yeah, we were like there to see the whole thing. And it worked out really well for us. And so because we had access to that market through the food hub, we were able to definitely make up for any other sales that we had lost in other markets that were kind of lagging, trying to catch up. And yeah, that's kind of our COVID story. Is Food Hub kind of filled that gap for us, and it's been great since then too. It's been consistent, so that's good for us. And then now we also sell in Boone at Be Natural, but we would have never been going to Boone if it wasn't for the Food Hub. So now we're like able to access different places in Boone because we're already making that trip. So we really love them. And
awesome. Thank you so much, Olivia. I think what we'll do is I'll go in that sequence, and then if we still have time, I might have some additional questions. But thanks so much for your story. That segues really nicely to Shannon. Carol, Shannon, do you want to share a story about what this time has been like?
Thanks, Jackie. Yes, it's been certainly an interesting time for us at the High Country Food Hub, but one of the things that I think we've all been grateful for is all the collaboration that has happened around the Food Hub from the very beginning. And we've certainly seen a whole nother level of that, in 2020 with COVID. So, as Olivia was saying, that March to April timeframe, where it made a difference in her sales and her market, we went from 100 customers a week roughly to about 500 customers a week. So it was quite a challenge, and there were times when we just weren't really sure how we were going to manage it all. But again, the community came together to help us and to collaborate. So the story I want to share is just some examples of all the different people and partners and folks that helped us through that time. So just for example, like when you have 5 times more product or 5 times more customers than you had, you have to have a place to put those things when they show up at your door. And we didn't have enough shelves. And so we reached out to some folks at ASU because we knew they weren't as busy at that time with food services and all. And they showed up almost within hours with a truck and shelves and rolled them into the food hub. So then we had shelves, and we didn't have enough cooler space. And actually Carol Coulter helped us with a connection there from some business folks in West Jefferson. They showed up one day with some glass door coolers, and we ended up, with sufficient cooler space. We needed another cooler. The economic development folks had provided other funding for us, but they came forward again with some funding that allowed us to add a more permanent cooler, walk-in cooler solution. When you've got, 5 times more customers, it takes a lot more hands and feet walking back and forth with orders to get them to customers outside than what we were doing before. So we had cooperative extension folks in this building, volunteers, just about anybody that, thought they might want to help, we brought them right in, and we couldn't have done it without that. Just space-wise, we had to expand into every nook and cranny in this building that we could almost, and the county worked with us on that. We still need a more cooler space, so Cisco brought us a truck and we parked it outside. And then folks like Olivia, like Carol, they ramped up their businesses and their production to meet the need that we were all presented with. And updated, information on the online market with that. New producers stepped forward, and that's been nice because now they're in the system and hopefully going to hang with us, going forward. And then the customers, yes, there was some panic buying, but we did gain a lot of new customers that maybe knew about the Food Hub but just hadn't, taken that first step. And now they're, coming every week, a lot of them still. And then the part that I'm the most grateful for, I think, is the wonderful staff and folks that had just come on board in a lot of cases, but all of us, even the ones that have been here for a while, Dave and I, we all, had to jump in together every week and help make this happen. And there were lots of smiles and laughter, maybe a few tears, a few days, when things got really challenging, but we got through it. We survived it. We thrived, I think, in the end, and things have leveled off a little more now. We've been able to hire some additional folks to, make things a little more manageable. So again, I think it all is about the collaboration and, having some of that in place, but taking that to a whole nother level with the challenges and opportunities that presented themselves in this situation that we've all been dealing with, in 2020. So that's kind of the part of the story I wanted to share.
It's so inspiring, Shannon. We're just so grateful to have all of you in this community for the healthy, tasty food that you're able to coordinate and provide. And as someone that teaches about the food economy, I just think that what we're seeing with the growth and how well you were able to manage that growth is really an inspiration. And I want to turn to Liz Whiteman, who is part of how those operations are able to be so seamless, to feel so safe. And so I'll turn it over to Liz.
Thanks, Jackie. So I'm gonna try not to repeat much of what has already been said about the Food Hub. But the word that really stuck with me over the past 7 or 8 months has been the resiliency of the food system here. A lot of the issues that we saw nationally of our industrial food system really failing us, I think didn't play out here, largely because of the structures that were imagined and built here over the past years and decades. So here at the Food Hub, we really saw that producers were able to use our platform to pivot really quickly. So our great partners at Farm Cafe had to mostly close their operations, but were really able to increase what they were selling through us. They've been able to do takeout through our pickup day in our parking lot and have facilitated some sort of sense of community there. We've also seen that restaurants that had to close back in March and April were able to pivot and start selling frozen and fresh food through us. So that I've been really proud of the platform that we've been able to provide to folks to be able to diversify what they're selling, to make up for lost income, and really just provide a way for us to support our neighbors and our farmers in our community. So I'll keep it short, but it's been really inspiring to see folks come together around the food hub and see folks socialize, masked and distanced at the food hub parking lot every Wednesday.
Thank you so much, Liz, for your hard work. And I love what you had to say about that kind of reciprocity and coordination and collaboration. I think it's a really special feature of so many of the people that are part of this event today really demonstrate. And Carol Coulter is a woman behind the scenes in so many things. She's also on the board of Farm Cafe with me. She was the executive director that launched the Food Hub, and along with Dave, and were the kind of brainstormed and Shannon kind of vision, and now it's a real thing with 500 customers a week and even more some weeks. It's crazy. Carol, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Jackie. So my story is partly about farming and really about our community. So just a little bit of background. My husband and I run a small goat dairy. We make cheese, fudge, and caramel. This was our 11th season of being a licensed dairy. And we, over time, had built a pretty diverse distribution system. So we had restaurants, we do festivals, we do farmers markets, of course, the food hub, we do retail. And recently, we've really gotten big into agritourism. So our story pretty much parallels a lot of farmers. In January and February, we're buying things to get ready for the season to really crank up. And in January and February, there was a little noise about COVID, but I think we all kind of thought it was like SARS or Ebola. We would get a handle on it. We had no idea how contagious it was. So we went along like it was going to be a pretty usual year. I'm buying containers and labels and supplies and spending money like crazy because I know in April, my season's really big and money starts coming in. Well, then in March, everything shuts down, restaurants, wineries, and we start kidding, which you can't really stop. I mean, that's just going to happen. So now we've got milk and it's time to make cheese and nothing's open. Everything's kind of shut down. And normally we'd be having lots of people on the farm because they love to bottle feed babies. And then they always buy cheese when they're here. And we had booked events every weekend in April. We work with wineries and they book these events where they bring in folks. We do a cheese tasting, they bottle feed babies, they make pizza, they buy a lot of cheese, they spend a lot of money, and we're back in the black again. Well, that didn't happen. I don't want to lay off any of my staff, so I have payroll to make. Goats eat like crazy when they're being milked, so there's a lot of feed, so bills don't stop, but money stopped. So we were able to get a small emergency disaster loan to help us with payroll. But the thing that really saved us was our sales at the food hub quadrupled. I mean, everything we didn't sell on all the other events, we were able to sell at the food hub. So that was super helpful. And really the story there was that the food hub was able to adapt and adjust and handle the enormous orders that were coming in. But really the story is the community stepped up. The community, they knew if they didn't support their local farmers, we were gonna go under. I mean, really, when we all lost our other venues, there were lots of farmers, and particularly vegetable farmers. We can freeze curd, we can put cheese in the cheese cave. Vegetable farmers, man, when it's ripe and you either have to pick it and sell it or you're kind of done. So it was really critical, and it really saved, I think, the farming community. Then in May, when the farmers markets opened up, normally there's like 1,900 to 2,000 people. Our first farmers market, there was under 500 people. People were being really cautious. And it was like, oh, this is an omen. This is gonna, so we're now directing everybody I talk to, I'm telling, go to the food hub. It's curbside pickup, order online, it's safe. And so it continued and it stayed steady. Then a really weird thing happened around July 4th. I don't know if people just got brave or stupid or comfortable or what, but the farmers market exploded, downtown Boone exploded. There was just people everywhere. And so our sales picked up at the farmers market. And the thing that happened there that I think, again, is just a comment on our community, people kept tipping me. They didn't want change. They kept just saying, keep the change. We really appreciate that you're here and what you're doing, which is really great for me, because then I just passed it on to the EBT folks. Because sometimes, you know, you're not supposed to make change when people give you or use their tokens for EBT. Because the theory is they'll whatever use for drugs or alcohol or whatever stupid thing, but I don't know how you could turn 50 cents into drugs. But anyway, it was just a great way. Then I could I could just say, okay, it's $5 or $4, or I could discount their sales. So it was a really super thing that the community just really recognized things. And then the really other weird thing is, I guess, people drink a lot of alcohol when they're miserable, because the wineries have just gone berserk. And apparently, you know, with the limits, they're just putting people all over the vineyard. I mean, people come with blankets, they get their bottle of wine and they go way out in the end of the vineyard. Well, they get their bottle of wine and they buy our cheese. So our cheese sales at the wineries have quadrupled. So it turns out this year has been our best year ever. It started off scary, but we are killing it now and we're exhausted. We're ready for so that's, and again, it's just been really wonderful that we have such a supportive community and they're so generous. And they take the time. You have to work hard to get local food. It's not as convenient as going to the grocery store. You have to take some extra steps. And we're so thankful that you all are doing that and keeping, how many farmers, Shannon? How many producers? Sorry, it's not all farmers. It's produced 70 some producers at the food hub and at the farmers market. You're keeping us alive and our families fed. And we thank you so much for that.
That's right. Well, I just want to echo some of Carol's points about the community stepping up. The success of all of this is, of course, due in part to the majority due to the kind of community that we're a part of, and also the relationship that we've had between this university and Blue Ridge Women in Agriculture and our other partners. And just to answer a question before I shift over to one of our other guests, Carol Coulter's business is Heritage Homestead Creamery and Goat Dairy. So Jim Bettado, Jim, can you say hello and unmute your audio? I'll introduce you and we'll be shifting. Hey Jim, where are you? Say
right
something.
Here.
You can pop up.
There he is.
There you are. So Jim, some of you might recognize Jim from one of our High Country Food Summits on campus. So Jim is an associate professor of anthropology at Western Carolina University. He's also the executive director of the Appalachian Mountain Institute. And he is also an excellent practitioner of permaculture and a seed saver. And Jim is actually going to help us to introduce our breakout activity, which is to ask, what's on your plate? My plate has to do with the radishes that are in my background, but Jim has an awesome story, so we'll shift it over to you, Jim.
Okay, can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what's on my plate. It's 11 species, inclusive of 8 different varieties, all that came off my farm, mostly from pretty ancient, like 1,000-year-old seeds. And I'll kind of go through this. I've got a few other, like I made what I would call hoe cakes, which is kind of something between tortillas and cornbread out of this. This is red, white, and blue corn. This was left behind by Muskogee Indians who gave it to a white family who grew it for 200 years in Georgia and gave it to this guy, Jimmy Cooley, who gave it to me 25 years ago. And then I boiled it with wood ash. Oh, wait, there's another species, 12 species. I boiled it with wood ash in a nixtamalization process, which adds niacin, increases the nutrition of it. And then I basically just heated it up on a cast iron. These are Cherokee October beans, if you can see that. Can you see those? Those are what I made. That I got those during my dissertation work. I've been working with the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians for 25 years. And so I've worked collaboratively with a lot of gardeners and farmers down there. So I've got a lot of Cherokee seeds, including a candy roaster seed. I cooked a candy roaster squash, and then look, there's this old Japanese proverb, 1 grain makes 1,000. That's not quite 1,000, but one candy roaster squash made a whole lot of seeds that can make a whole lot more candy roaster squash. So what I do, I call subsistence smallholder gardening foraging. And you can do this on 1 acre without season extension or refrigeration. And I've got an incredible meal, including now this, of course, was canned, but this is from Arkansas black apples, old-timey apple variety. I don't know if you can see, it's got a very beautiful sort of red tint to it. I've also, for tea, I've got sassafras tea. The Cherokee have probably been drinking this for about 14,000 years here. So it's a time-honored tradition. A couple other things that I had on the plate. I'll go ahead and try to get this. This is actually mashed taters, Kennebec taters. I'm sure a lot of you have grown those. This also has sunchokes in it, which is Helioanthus tuberosus, which is native and has been cultivated by the Cherokee for thousands of years. There's a fall flush of stinging nettles. That's shout out to Europe, Urtica dioica, mixed in with creasy greens, another shout out to Europe, mixed in with 2 varieties, red enchilium and German extra hardy garlic. That's the applesauce. That's the beans and the corn. That's the candy roaster. And in the middle, to help my digestion, I've got a Chinese radish that's actually kind of sweet and a little bit spicy as well. So I'm just kind of a proponent. I'm an ethnobotanist, probably pretty clearly. But I'm a proponent of survival and thrival. And it can be done. I mean, I know most of y'all are talking about markings and stuff, and that's great. But at the end of the day, it don't take much to go a long way. And old timers and Cherokee people have known that for a long time. So I'm going to just give a shout out. Yeah, I do teach classes at Western Carolina University, also not too much right now because of COVID, but at my institute. But we hope to ramp that back up in the next growing season. Actually, so I'm where Olivia is. It's called Silo. The Cherokee word would be Shelu or Shelo-E. It's Corn Mother's place. And what is called the Great Wall of Gaduwagi, the Black Mountains. So about an hour 15 south of Boone.
Awesome. Well, I think everyone wants to come over for dinner now, Jim.
Too bad. I'm going to eat it all. No.
Well, that's awesome. I think at this point, we're ready for our breakout session. And I think Ellen's guiding us with that, right?
Well, did y'all have great discussions? I was able to join a room for a short bit and I really, really enjoyed it. So it was nice.
Yeah, we had a great discussion. Thank you, Leah.
I'm going to pass it over to you, Carla.
Perfect. I'm going to pass it over to Adam and Alicia as soon as they get back on board here, if they're not already here. So we're going to start our second panel discussion. Carla, while we're
waiting, could I just plug, say something for 15 seconds? For everyone who's in this group, I'm Dr. Jessica Martell, and I'm in the Department of Interdisciplinary Studies and an AppalFRESH member, and I'm the board vice chair of Blue Ridge Women in Agriculture. I just wanted to say that if you enjoyed the first panel, I think it's really important for us as a campus community to recognize that the resiliency that everyone just talked about and the way in which Boone as a community has responded with, and actually thrived during extremely difficult conditions is born of a campus community partnership that was born 15 years ago in the Appalachian Studies classroom. Blue Ridge Women in Agriculture is a nonprofit that was actually an idea that women had taking Pat Beaver's class. And so students like you can start an incredible movement. And so we're seeing these incredible dividends of ASU's investment in the community that's just been years and years in the making. And I'm really proud to be a part of an organization that really ties students and faculty and staff and community together. So for those of you who didn't know that long history, this is what can happen when you take what you learn in the classroom and activate it outside in the community. And I just wanted to kind of share that context for you, just in case you didn't know, for all of you new students who are here.
That's awesome. Thanks so much, Jess.
Carla, we made it back. So if you want me to.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate it.
We caught what you were saying as we were coming back in. So.
No, you're great. If you take it on for the second panel, that'd be great.
Okay. Well, good evening, everyone. I'm Adam Heggie, and I'm going to be co-moderating our next panel discussion, and I'm going to be co-moderating along with Alicia Ferris, a professor in nutrition. And we are very fortunate to have some wonderful speakers with us this evening. They're going to tell a little bit about what their agencies are doing and give us a little bit of insight into some stories around things that they are doing related to food security in our area. And we know that food insecurity is a major issue facing this part of the state and our community. And so especially during COVID-19, we've seen those numbers continue to go up. So we have with us Dave Walker from Blue Ridge Women in Agriculture. We have Elena Dalton and Renee Bowman from Farm Cafe. We have Elizabeth Young from Hunger and Health Coalition. And we have Courtney Thomas from Virginia Tech. And I'm just going to go down the list, and I'll start off with Dave. Dave, if you want to just share a little bit about yourself and what you all are doing with Blue Ridge Women in Agriculture.
Hey, thank you. My name is Dave Walker. I'm the Development Director at Blue Ridge Women in Agriculture. And our food insecurity work really is centered around our Double Up Food Bucks program. The Double Up program is it's a win-win-win for our community. By doubling the value of SNAP EBT, WIC Farmers Market vouchers, and Senior Farmers Market vouchers at farmers markets in Watauga County, families have healthier choices, farmers increase their income, and more money circulates in our local economy. For 2020, more than $21,000 has been redeemed for high country grown food at Watauga County's 4 farmers markets, reaching over 220 families, which means that more food dollars have been doubled this year than in the last 3 years combined. This occurred because we hired a Double Up Food Bucks coordinator and expanded our outreach initiatives, really focusing on this year's new PEBT program for families with children on free and reduced lunch, as well as partnerships with Watauga County's Health Department and Senior Center, among others like Farm Cafe, the Food Council, Hunger and Health Coalition, and many more. We also removed the limit of how much folks could double at the farmer's market with their EBT card, and that made a significant difference. We're still reaching only around 7% of the people in our community who are on SNAP right now. So we need to do a better job connecting with more people and letting them know about the program and really making farmers markets more inviting and flexible for all types of customers to shop at. Still, the impact's been really incredible this year. A few weeks ago, one participant told Ellie Mullis, our Double Up coordinator, that she'd actually heard of the program because she donated to it before. With the new hardships brought on by COVID this year, she was now eligible for the program and felt happy to be a part of a community that looked after one another. Another participant shared at the weekday King Street Market that she appreciated the program and that her family would not be able to shop local if it weren't for the Double Up program. So the Double Up program really works in coordination with other food insecurity and food outreach activities that you'll hear from folks like Elena and Elizabeth.
Thank you, Dave. We appreciate it. And there was one question, if we want to take that real quickly.
Sure.
The question was, do y'all limit what folks on EBT can buy at the market? Is it only produce?
That's a great question. We're unique as a Double Up program that we don't, we match dollar for dollar what folks can spend their SNAP card on. And so it's just like a SNAP card. Folks who have WIC or Senior Farmers Market vouchers, those vouchers are specific to certain items like fresh fruit and vegetable. And so when we double those, then the Double Up portion, folks can use that to buy meat, eggs, value-added products, and then use their voucher for WIC and Senior Farmers Market on those specific products.
Thank you, Dave. We appreciate it.
Sure.
All right. Up next, we have a couple of folks from Farm Cafe. Connected to Farm Cafe, we have Elena and Renee. And I didn't know which one wanted to speak first, but we'll turn it over to the two of you.
Okay, she's looking at me, so I have to. We've kind of pivoted at Farm Cafe, and I can't thank the Food Hub enough for their relationship with us, that they've helped us figure out a path to continue to feed people, by helping us have a marketplace where we can take our goods. Elena had already, and she can speak to this, established a good relationship with our food recovery program. But one of the things that happened as soon as COVID kicked in, we shut our doors down and we're just producing meals for those in need at the hospitality house, still doing our networking with the Full Circle program, but not doing meals at the cafe. Now we're still doing takeout, to go, and curbside, but we've continued the relationship with the High Country Food Hub. And we immediately, because as Carol said, the community was so responsive, we had people, individual donors, who came to us and said, we're really concerned about people in our community who are suffering, and we're thinking about local food, and we're thinking about ways to make this happen. And so we were able, with the Food Hub in March, to immediately start handing out gift certificates, because as soon as this donor said, how can I get local food to people who are struggling, I said, well, I know people who have lost their jobs, particularly in the food service industry. They need food right now. They're going to get boxes at Ransom and other places, and they're already kind of in panic because they can't get their unemployment. We were able to immediately kind of siphon that money to the Food Hub, and they were so thrilled that they could go to the Food Hub and get food that they enjoy and could use. And so for us, it's been just this great relationship. That's just one story, but that's been a way that I think we are so unique in this community to have these types of networks, and that we've been able to continue to buy local produce and get that local produce to our folks is essential to us. It's a central theme of Farm Cafe. And we're doing a pop-up next week again at the Food Hub because they're allowing us to partner. So again, that's fundraising for us on one level, but on the other level, it's utilizing the products of our community in a way that we honor and that we feel like provides food in the most dignified manner to everyone, particularly those in need. So we're very thankful. But I'll let Elena take it from there.
Thanks, Renee. Like you said, I'm incredibly appreciative to be a part of this community. I have spoken with many others who haven't had this sort of resiliency and who have faced a lot of hardships when supply chains were disrupted. And we didn't really feel that. I was always able to find milk or eggs at the Food Hub. Just to expand on what Renee said, All of our products from Farm Cafe are offered on a donate what you can basis. We have folks who come every day to have lunch with us at the cafe. Those who are unable to get to us at our brick and mortar are able to receive our products through the High Country Food Hub, which has been huge for us in extending the availability to those who can't make it downtown. I oversee our food recovery and redistribution program, Farm Full Circle. And so that addresses two conflicting issues in our community, being food waste on the one hand and food insecurity on the other. So again, that allows Farm Cafe to take its mission out of our restaurant into homes in the High Country. We partner with over 20 businesses, nonprofits, and institutions of higher learning to collect foods that would otherwise be thrown away. And then our very talented staff and in non-COVID times, our volunteers help us to use that food to create meals that we can then distribute all through our community at no charge. We can also offer those same high quality products at the High Country Food Hub on a donate what you can basis, thereby helping us to be more sustainable and again, try to do our part to make our food system more equitable and resilient.
Thank you, Elaine and Renee. I'm going to keep us moving forward. We'll maybe take a couple questions at the end. Up next, we'll hear from Elizabeth Young from Health and Hunger and Health Coalition.
Hi, everybody. It's so good to see you guys. I feel like we're together and it's so nice. And all your stories of food are making me really hungry, especially you, Jim. I want to come eat with you for sure. So I am the director of the Hunger and Health Coalition. We are the High Country's large-scale food pantry and free pharmacy. And what a wild time it has been. So of course, during COVID, like so many other agencies, we lost about 95 to 98% of our volunteers, many of whom were students or retirees. And that's posed some real challenges. You know, we shifted every facet of our operations where our clients are no longer coming in our building. They're coming through a drive-through. And so I feel like we're constantly pivoting. I'm sure you all feel the same way every time there's new information that comes out. We're shifting our programs and services. So just recently, we had to hire about 2.5 new staff members just to continue serving the volume of people that we are. We've seen about 1,000 new families come to us since the beginning of COVID. So it's been a wild time, to be certain. One of the things I wanted to say a big shout out as well to the Food Hub. So like many of us that went to the store and were looking for our favorite flowers or sugar or candy or whatever it was that was not really available, the same was true for us on a much larger scale. So we order through Second Harvest Food Bank. The things that we were ordering, we only saw about 25% of those orders fulfilled. So about 6 years ago, we started a local food purchasing program and really have expanded that year after year and relied on our local food system so much to be able to get food to our community, which fed into one of our main goals is to look at health pretty holistically and look at food as medicine. That's a major priority of ours. And so in conjunction with some of our partners, we work with the ASU's Nutrition and Healthcare Management Department. Big shout out to all of you guys, in particular, Melissa Gutshaw. She's been working with us for some time and has been providing free sessions with registered dietitians, which is a really big deal. It's about $120 an hour service for our clients that are battling chronic diseases and coming to get things such as insulin and cholesterol medications, high blood pressure meds from our pharmacy. So we're able to make some direct referrals that way. And then one of the other things that I wanted to mention, we've partnered with the hospital for some years now for food insecurity screenings. We had the 3rd in the state at that time, and we are expanding that to be a countywide food insecurity screening tool. So anytime you go to any medical office, whether it's a general practitioner or a specialist, you'll be screened for food insecurity. And then, if you're found to be struggling to meet your needs or perhaps have a diet link illness, your prescriber will write a food prescription to come see us for ongoing care. So we're really delighted about that. And then, of course, a referral to the nutrition team. And then also a shout out to ASU. So for the past, maybe 15 years, we've picked up about 13,000 pounds of food that hasn't been consumed and repurposed that into take-home meals. And one last thing, and then I'll hush. But if you are looking for ways to get engaged and plugged in, we do have some really safe ways to do that. We are looking for volunteers. We're asking that you have a negative COVID test. We also have a program called A Simple Gesture that is an ongoing canned food drive program. And we're looking for drivers that can go and pick up food. So that's about an hour and a half, just once every 2 months. So that's a pretty neat way to engage. And we've also started a mobile food delivery program for people that struggle with transportation needs. So I'm delighted to be a part of the panel. Thank you again. Hope to see you all in person at some point.
Thank you, Elizabeth. We greatly appreciate all that you all do. And up next, last but certainly not least, we have one more speaker we want to hear from is Courtney Thomas.
Hi, I'm so glad to be with you all. I was so glad to have the invitation. I'm a political science professor at Virginia Tech, and I work in food politics. So about 8 years ago, I got involved in a project that was designed to deconstruct a lot of stereotypes and mythologies around food insecure populations, especially living in rural parts of Virginia. And together with a couple of graduate students, did a series of interviews with food insecure households and families and people who were receiving food assistance to talk about how they were sourcing their food, what kinds of foods they were preparing for their families, and how those did or did not line up with common media stereotypes and tropes and political tropes that we hear about these populations. And what is definitely not a surprise to any of you because of the work that you do is that there was very little overlap between the stereotypes that we see portrayed and people who were using farmers markets and doing container gardening and who were using all kinds of really creative, innovative, and local food strategies in order to supplement the food assistance that they were getting, and then how they were able to connect with SNAP educators from Virginia Tech through our extension program to teach them ways to maximize the benefits of their food aid alongside of all of these other programs. And because that background, I then began working, once the pandemic started, with a comparative analysis of different food security mechanisms among school systems and looking at the different ways that school systems that fill this huge food security function that we didn't normally think about in food insecure times were called into that. And the very different ways they were able to do it, the supply chain problems and the distribution challenges, but also the relative successes of those different efforts. I'm also I'm one of the leaders of the Food Studies Knowledge Community through Common Ground, which is a research network. And the research network is doing a large project in the coming year to 2 years, looking across the United States, but also internationally at different approaches to food security issues during the pandemic. And so we have scholars who are studying food security in Latin America. We have a number that are looking at problems and dynamics in the United States. And then what we see are people who are bringing their own expertise as they navigate these very unusual and challenging times, so that they can share knowledge together through that community with the understanding that some of the food challenges that we've seen during the pandemic aren't specific to the pandemic and they aren't necessarily going away. That the things that we're learning from this are strategies that we can continue to implement as we try to advance food security programs within communities, on state levels, and internationally as well. So I love the work that you're doing. And if any of you are interested in participating in our knowledge community, we would love to hear more about the incredible successes that you're having. I've spent the last 6 months primarily hearing it. It's just, it's amazingly uplifting to hear about the amazing success and the partnerships that you have. And it restores a lot of my faith in the work that I and people in food politics are doing.
Thank you, Courtney. I appreciate all that you had to say. I think that's important how you kind of ended there talking about, you know, COVID-19 has put a lot of things that we already knew were going on, a lot of issues people were facing, including food insecurity, and kind of put it at the forefront, but and made things worse, but they were already there. So thanks for sharing that. And I think that kind of wraps up this panel. So I'll turn it back over to Carla.
Great. Thank you, everyone, for sharing your expertise. I love this community of people who are really striving to have a vision of a food future that's different. I think we had this really unique opportunity that we didn't see coming, where we actually had the opportunity to hit a reset button. And I think a lot of us have restructured a lot of our foodways because of that. And I hope that we come back stronger, right, and more resilient because of what we've had to go through. So I know you all are dying to get the results of the polls. So I want to share that with you here before we depart. And again, we're not actually ending. If people want to stick around a little longer and ask some more questions of our panelists, you are welcome to do so. I just wanted to thank our two moderators for the second panel discussion. They are both also AppalFRESH collaborative members. Okay, let's do it. So what is the most favorite kitchen tool? And I'm probably sure that you guys, you all might think you know the answer. I could have predicted this answer, but here it is. Okay, so the #1 winner is the cast iron skillet. Woohoo! Right? And so, yeah, love it completely. Actually, funny story, the #2 was a 4-way tie. This picture actually was updated between when I pasted it here and when I grabbed these results. It was a 4-way tie for the second most favorite kitchen utensil between the chef's knife, the Instant Pot, the spatula. Did not see that one coming, but I get it. And the toaster oven. So anyway, so kind of fun stuff there, trying to see how we navigate our kitchens. Let's go to our second poll question. And this, I just kind of made a bit of a word cloud, or whatever you call these things, of what food is comforting us these days. We see front and center pasta. I love that. I think my Italian roots, that makes me super, super joyful. We have had a lot of that. We also see some big names for homemade soup, or just homemade in general. We see soup and cheese and potatoes, and there is in there somewhere candy with 3 exclamation marks. So anyway, so good. Thank you all for sharing. And last but not least, let's head on to our last one. So what new things related to food have you tried? So this is not the most readable, so I decided to break it out here. So the #1 thing that people are trying is just cooking more and relying on processed food less. So again, that's one of those reset buttons that I hope can continue. #2 hit was having some kind of outdoor venue, a campfire, picnic, some way to gather with family and friends safely in an open environment. #3 was growing a home garden, right? So it was tough to come by some seeds at the beginning of spring this year because people were all about sort of returning to these vital skills that we, could all really get better at, certainly. And then the 4th would be sort of what we're doing. So it's kind of a nice segue, this virtual meal with family and friends. So using these new online environments that we've become more familiar with than we kind of wish we were at this point, to actually connect to family and friends. I think I'm back. So hopefully, with the holidays coming up, and we see some makes that we can't gather with family the way we would typically, then maybe we can get creative and think about ways to gather with family in a more virtual environment. I think I might be breaking up a little bit. Okay, so that's the end. I appreciate Evan's contribution. Thank you again for being here. Anybody that wants to stick around, please do so. And you can just mute yourself. Anybody comments, they can be shared in the chat also.
But before everyone breaks, I want to say a big thank you to you, Carla, because you've been doing such an outstanding job organizing these events over the last few years. Yay!
Somewhere out in Appalachia, that's where I first went after the dream to make it on my own. Someone told me you could buy many things just by picking guitar strings. I set out to bring it all back home.